So you've got food inflation that may be coming as a result of that, but also for other reasons. Oil and gas and everything that's happening there. How are those events going to be affecting ordinary people's lives in your?
Well, in a big way, and it's going to get a lot worse. That is a big deal. And I'll come back to the Ukraine connection because it's huge, but the supply chain was breaking down before the war in Ukraine. That was breaking down beginning in 2018 with Trump's trade wars. We don't have to debate the pros and cons of tariffs and trade wars. There are two sides to that, but there's no question that disrupted the supply chain when Trump put tariffs on imported solar modules and consumer durables and refrigerators and air conditioners, everything coming from everyone, but it was clearly aimed at China. China retaliated by saying, we're not going to buy any more U.S. soybeans. And they bought their soybeans from Brazil. Now that sounds like, oh, okay, you change your purchase order from the U.S. to Brazil. What's the big deal? It's a huge deal. They move them on ships. You got to redirect all that ship traffic, change all those shipping lanes, break a lot of long-term contracts. The U.S. has to scramble to say, well, we got to sell the soybeans to the Dutch because the Chinese aren't buying them anymore. And so the point being, the logistics, the trains, the train lanes, cargo lanes, the purchase order, the currency, it all get scrambled. So that was going on before the pandemic. Then boom, here comes the pandemic, and the Chinese are, they got the zero COVID policy. You might as well have a zero cold policy. No one can get a cold. We're going to shut down a city of 26 million people, which is Shanghai, because there's a kind of tame version of the flu going around. I'm not in charge of China, so I can't change that, but I do know what they're doing, and they're doing exactly what I just said. Next to Shanghai is a place called Ningbo, which is the biggest port in China. Most of the containers showing up at the port of Los Angeles are coming out of Ningbo. Well, that's all affected. And so the global supply chain is breaking down. It was already breaking down. Now it's a lot worse. Now, along comes the war in Ukraine. And you're absolutely right about the wheat. Russia and Ukraine. Now, I know there are different sides of the war. They're in a fight to the death. But taken economically, if you combine Russia and Ukraine, you're looking at 25% of all the wheat exports in the world. Now, obviously, that's a huge number, but the point is there are countries where they get 100% of their wheat from one of those two places. Lebanon gets 100% of its wheat from Ukraine. Lebanon's a basket case anyway, and now there's no food. There are countries in Africa where people are going to be starving. So that is that's going to be not just an economic dislocation and an inflationary vector. It is that, but you're looking at humanitarian tragedies on a colossal scale. You're looking at starvation in a lot of cases. But let's not, and that's bad enough. Let's not stop with wheat. For example, the U.S. said we're not allowing any advanced semiconductors, maybe any semiconductors at all, or high-tech equipment to be exported to Russia. Certainly can't come from the U.S. But the United States went further. We said, we don't care who you are, if you're China, Taiwan, Japan, anyone else. If you're manufacturing advanced technology equipment and tools and using semiconductors that involve U.S. technology or U.S. tools, because you're operating under a license from the United States, you can't export to Russia either. Now, enforcement is another issue, but so far the Chinese have kind of towed that line. So we've cut off basically advanced equipment and semiconductors to Russia. Okay, that affects defense and aeronautics and a lot of other industries. Well, Russia said, okay, to comply, how do you make semiconductors? Well, they're wafers and they're different layers. You need the chemicals and the strategic metals to make those layers. But more to the point, you etch the circuits on the semiconductor with lasers. How do you power the lasers? Well, there's a certain kind of compressed neon gas that's used to power the lasers to etch the semiconductors. 70% of that processed gas comes from a single plant in Odessa in Ukraine. So now it's like, this isn't no semiconductors for Russia. This is no semiconductors for the world, because the world can't get the neon gas they need to run the lasers to etch the semiconductor. Now, can you replace it? Yeah, you can probably replace most things, but it takes years in some cases to do that. And you say, well, why hasn't this shown up already? Well, first of all, it is. I mean, Tesla assembly lines are shut down. Try getting a new car in the United States. Good luck. Cars have 1,400 semiconductors. They're basically computers on wheels. When I was a kid, learn how to stick a screwdriver in a carburetor if the engine was flooded. They don't even have carburetors anymore. They got semiconductors. So these supply chains are breaking down. And like, why isn't it worse right now? The answer is they manufacturers and intermediate participants in the global supply chain have what they call safety stock. It's a little extra inventory, maybe more than you want, but just in case there's a minor disruption. Well, this isn't a minor disruption. This is a major disruption. You can get by for 30 days using it for safety stock, but then you got to go reorder. And that's when you find out that either the price has tripled or it's just not available at any price. Or even if you can put the order in, the shipping lanes and the transit lanes are broken down and you're not going to see it for next year, until next year.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.